Okay, well, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are beginning the third day of PharmaSynergy, and today the whole focus going to be on Asia Pacific, the region that is very dynamic, that you in the audience have been asking us on many occasions to have an introduction into this region, to understand its trends, to understand what is happening, how to partner with the companies in this region. And it is our pleasure to introduce this edition to PharmaSynergy, the edition that is entirely focused on Asia Pacific. We have a long day ahead of us, and so without any further delay, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Mayank Mathuriya. Mayank is currently running business development and alliances for Menarini in Asia Pacific, a business close to 1 billion with strong focus on deal making for business growth. Mayank holds an MBA from London Business School and scientific degree from UT Austin in US. He has a strong record in deal origination and execution in the region and has created and led high performances team. With that, my pleasure. Over to you, Mayank. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Christina. Well, first off, I would like to congratulate you for conceptualizing and organizing a very, very relevant platform that has allowed people to exchange ideas and also interact in a very, very meaningful manner. The feedback that I have received over the last 2 days from panelists, from networkers, from participants has been extremely encouraging. And this alludes towards a very positive session that has been run so far. So I request to the audiences in Berlin and everyone who's actually dialed in to give a short round of applause to Christina, the team, the service providers, contractors that have worked day and night to make this event happen. As far as this day is concerned, yes, we'll be focusing on our beloved, our buzzing Asia Pacific. There'll be a short keynote address that I'll be delivering, and then we have 2 sessions, very, very interactive sessions with leaders, pharma leaders from the industry in the region, followed by the partnering sessions as well. So in this keynote address, I'll be basically covering 3 main topics. The first is talking about the Asia Pacific market, the key statistics and some market features. Second is focusing a little bit on the deal-making space, the goals, the ways of achieving those goals that Big Pharma has been initiating, along with Big Pharma, how it actually racks up if we look at regional MNCs and also investment firms. Towards the end, I would on the digital healthcare space in Asia Pacific, which is extremely vibrant and in an evolving phase right now. So if we take a look at all of the market indicators, Asia Pacific definitely seems like a very, very relevant region. It is most populous. It has a very big market size in terms of the pharmaceutical industry, close to 300 billion, which is similar to Europe. And it is definitely fast growing, faster than any other region. Key callouts. The median age of population in Asia Pacific now is lower than the worldwide median age of 31. The spending in the pharmaceutical industry is expected to increase from 19 to 27% in the next 20 years, which means close to 50% increase in the next 20 years. And then when it comes to the participation of the pharmaceutical industry, I'm very proud to say that close to 40% of a total of top 1,000 pharmaceutical companies are either headquartered in Asia Pacific or have their origins in Asia. Going one level deeper into the region, Asia Pacific inherently is very heterogeneous from a socio-economic standpoint. And because of this very reason, there are different opportunities and different challenges that this region presents. Hence, we would like to categorize the region across 3 main buckets. The first one being developed markets. We are talking about China, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Singapore, and Taiwan. Typically, these countries have a high GDP. They are well developed in terms of the healthcare infrastructure. And they have a large market for the specialty care products, especially given the fact that they have a very established reimbursement system. The second bucket is emerging markets. Typically, we would include India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam in this bucket. Growing GDP, fast-growing healthcare infrastructure, and definitely moving in the right direction when it comes to providing reimbursement coverage. The third and final bucket is nascent markets like Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Pakistan. Access still remains an issue in these particular markets, though at the same time, despite having the low GDP, they are definitely experiencing a fast growth themselves as well. Now, if you take a look at these different markets that present different challenges and opportunities, and if you overlay different kind of companies, big MNCs, medium-sized companies, investment firms, there are different goals that different entities have and different capabilities, different product portfolios. So inherently, there is a need for deal making. There is a need for deal making, which is also important to have an efficient system when it comes to providing the right access to patients across all of the markets. So what I would like to do now is go a little bit deeper into each of these three categories and then talk about the deal making and the transaction space in the region. Developed markets, we are essentially looking at a high GDP per capita on the table on the left. The healthcare spent and the hospital beds per thousand also in a way stacking very closely to the numbers that we see in EU and the US. The one key message that I have from an industry standpoint is the transition of companies in Asia Pacific from licensee to a licensor. If you take a look at the pie chart on the left, 17%, so which is about 1/5 of the total number of deals that have been done by originators for out licensing have come from Asia Pacific countries. Now, if you take a look at the pie chart on the right, the total number of transactions in Asia Pacific, be it in licensing, out licensing, acquisitions within Asia Pacific, cross-border, cross-geography, close to half of them, which is 46%, have been essentially out licensing, which means that we do see quality innovation that is being recognized all across the world, coming not just from Japan, also from Korea, also from China and other markets. Moving on to the second category, which is the developing markets. We do see that there is a growth, though at the same time, the healthcare affordability is a little bit low. When it comes to the initiatives that have been taken in quite a few of these countries, if you look at Vietnam, for example, the healthcare expenditure has increased from 40 to close to 60%, which is a 50% increase in the last 20 years when it comes to public expenditure. If you look at the sheer coverage of the public healthcare insurance, it has risen from a paltry 2% to a whooping 90% in the last 30 years. Similarly, in Philippines, there have been initiatives that have been taken to have some kind of an MRP or a maximum retail price for many molecules from 5 to close to 125. So what does this allude towards? Essentially speaking, these markets want to reduce the out-of-pocket spend for patients. If we look at the different players in these markets, so few select companies that we've mentioned on the right, these companies are generally high scale. They've become export oriented in terms of generic manufacturing, and they have strong local commercialization capabilities and a fast improving track record in compliance as well. Moving on to the third and the final bucket, which is nascent markets, we do see low GDP per capita, which has been increasing, and the hospital beds per thousand also rather low. In these markets, I have to say that access continues to remain a little bit of a challenge. we do see that quite a lot of these markets are designated as LDCs, the least developed countries by the UN. And the World Trade Organization has exempt quite a few of these countries for the next close to 15 years from any kind of pharma patents. We do see big MNCs like GSK, Sanofi, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, and many others that do CSR initiatives. But at the same time, when it comes to sustained profitability from these markets, it still is challenging because the sheer pricing in these markets is close to 30% in some cases and as big as 80% in others, lower as compared to the pricing that you see in the more mature markets. The key players in these markets are more so local, becoming a little bit cross-regional as well, focused on local applications in terms of manufacturing and also commercialization. Now, this was a brief snapshot into the region, the categories, the companies, the trends, the focus of the governments. I would now like to move on to the deal-making space and would like to look at it from the lens of big pharma, medium-sized MNCs, and investment firms, including private equity. So big pharma is essentially looking at outward deals to optimize the portfolio, but they're also looking at inward deals to tap innovation, the trend that I mentioned earlier, that there is quality innovation coming out from the region and select countries. The second is medium-sized MNCs. Essentially speaking, these companies are focused more towards inward deals to leverage and build their commercial capabilities. And then we are looking at quite a few private equity funds, big size like TPG and Carlyle, more focused in the region like Quadria, that are not just looking at assets, but they're also looking at assets in terms of companies, but they're also looking at products. Delving a little bit further into the first bucket, which is big pharma. Historically, they have been focused on outward deals. And when it comes to outward deals, the focus is looking at the upcoming LOEs of legacy blockbusters. In many cases, also looking at portfolio restructuring. The kind of deals, the outward deals that big pharma is essentially undertaking is divestments, but also we do see localized and regional or sub-regional distribution deals as well. Just to mention a few examples, Menarini acquired from Eli Lilly the rights to Cialis in China. Organon very recently completed a deal in the women's health space, getting access to China and quite a few markets in Southeast Asia. And then there are select distribution deals in Korea that we see happening on a very regular basis to tap the strength in commercialization that the local companies continue to possess. The more exciting part is the inward deals, in my opinion, where we see, then again, because of improved quality and technology of the innovation coming from Asia, and also the fact that typically the innovators in Asia also need partners, also need capital for co-development, and also the experience that the big pharma can bring in when it comes to registrations in Europe or in the US. The typical nature of such deals is in licensing, though we have also seen asset swap deals that have been done, for example, between Beijing and Amgen a couple of years ago. I put Innovent and Eli Lilly in these select deals for a reason. While this deal looks extremely exciting, very recently we experienced that the US FDA has raised serious questions on the registration of this product. So it will be a little bit interesting for us to see the openness and the objectivity of accepting innovation from Asian countries outside of Japan that has traditionally been a leader. Now, talking about mid-sized MNCs, have to say that the competition that we are experiencing in deal-making space in this particular category is more than ever before. I do see a lot of my friends in the industry and I see them smiling, and we always call each other frenemies because we are competing on deals while we have similar challenges. One of the reasons is that it is a matter of fact that quite a few companies like Zuellig, like DKSH and Menarini have indeed enhanced their capabilities with time. From being logistics provider like Zuellig or DKSH, or a CSO like Invida that was acquired later on by Menarini, to really performing all of the different services that you can think of and actually gravitating towards becoming a pharmaceutical company is what we see, which at the end of the day is good for the region, is good for competition, is good for customers. We also see very sizable new entrants. We know about Viatris, and we know about the spin-off from MSD Organon. Otherwise, these big pharma companies would not have been going for the same mature brand assets that typically a Menarini, Zuellig, DKSH, Abbott, and other markets and other companies would actually go for. But with these sizable spin-offs, we see much more competition. I tried to prepare a perceptual map here, looking at the portfolio of the different companies as reflected by IQVIA. And it does not reflect any of the in-distribution deals. So let's take this data with a little bit of pinch of salt. But if we take a look at this 2 by 2, on the y-axis, you look at innovative products and generics. On the x-axis, you look at primary and specialty care. The key message here is the empty first quadrant, which is the box on the top right. So when it comes to specialty care innovative assets, we see more and more focus where big pharma wants to be. And the other 3 quadrants are left for all of the mid-sized companies and also new entrants to furthermore compete in. Going into the third bucket of the deal-making participants, investment firms. I have to say that private equity, especially when it comes to the Asia-Pacific perspective, had made limited healthcare investments, furthermore limited in the pharma space, and they were more or less localized in nature, restricted to China, India, and Japan. But what you see as a new trend, we see that basically private equities are participating more and more, not just in getting minority or majority stake in companies, but also portfolios and brand acquisitions. This may be an opportunity for medium-sized companies to actually look at collaborations where private equity may or may not want to form the commercial capabilities and the infrastructure in each and every market. This is a brief table that shows big to small private equity firms in terms of their assets under management and the different companies in which they have invested or where they continue to hold as a portfolio company or where they've already exited. I would now like to touch base very briefly on digital health. The reason I think this topic is still highly relevant, because of the competition and because of limited differentiating factors that different companies have, I think digital health will indeed become a very important tool in terms of value proposition, both to the out licensors, but also to the different segments of the customers that we actually adhere to in one form or the other. First and foremost, few macro trends again. Though in Asia Pacific, we spoke about 3 different buckets where we have developed, we have developing, and we have nascent markets. But fact of the matter is that it is a digital savvy region. The access to high-speed internet in Asia Pacific versus worldwide is much higher. We look at online purchases, then again, they very nicely compare with the worldwide trend. In terms of mobile connectivity, the number of connections actually outnumber the total population in the region that we have. What we see in terms of healthcare initiatives, though, they actually differ consequently between developed markets and developing markets. For developed markets, we see a lot of initiatives in digital therapeutics, in drug development. Very interestingly, there is actually a digital therapeutics company that even got an approval in Japan. So there could be a regulatory pathway. We do see Singapore, Korea, Australia also introducing new and more progressive guidelines when it comes to digital therapeutics. Looking at emerging markets that are not at the same stage of maturity, digital healthcare still remains extremely relevant, but in a different way. This is being used to get more and more access to healthcare services, and also digitalization of medical records, as we see that a country like Vietnam has set out a very clear target, ambitious, but we feel achievable target of 95% of all records to go electronic. Then on the right, you do see wearables and social platforms that are kind of agnostic to the maturity of any of these markets. And we see trends for wearables and social platforms across developed and also developing and emerging markets. These are few companies, wanted to just put them out. Basically, we see that there is a wide range of application when it comes to digital healthcare: doctor selection, patient engagement, diagnosis, telemedicine, so on and so forth. What we see right now, though, is that there are many startups that are focused on particular markets or particular group of markets and trying to basically prove their value proposition by looking at one small segment. And it will be interesting to see how it all comes together. Would just like to provide key highlights as we wrap up this keynote address. One, would like to further reiterate that APAC is an attractive region, and it just requires customized, tailor-made approaches on a market-by-market basis, which means more labor-intensive for people like us in the industry. There is surging innovation from the region. The competition for deals is definitely more than ever before. And the digital healthcare space is extremely promising. Before I hand it over to Hemant for the next session, very briefly, I would like to talk about Menarini, the company for which I'm heading business development in the region. I promise to keep it the shortest. Menarini is close to a $5 billion group. Most of our sales are coming from the primary care space, while we do have a focus on specialty care as well going forward. In Asia Pacific, we are close to $1 billion region. We have presence in pretty much all of the different markets. And when it comes to deal making, we look at product acquisitions. We look at in-licensing of innovative assets, both in the RX and OTC space. And we are looking at distribution or commercial partnerships as well. With this, I will hand it over to Hemant, who is heading business development for Abbott in the region. He is a very experienced, very renowned professional in this space. I'm not saying this because he's a personal friend. Okay, that is a part of the reason, but also because of the fact that he has very strong experience across other MNCs, including AstraZeneca, including Novo Nordisk, has seen the space evolve, and he'll be leading our first very exciting session that focuses on innovation in the region. So over to you, Hemant, please.
Thank you, Mayank, and wishing you all a very good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the session, exploring the innovation potential of APAC companies. Taking the theme forward, we would discuss in this session what kind of trends are forming in this diversified region and how the regional stakeholders are securing successful licensing activities globally. We would also touch upon points relating to the overview of partnership factors which are specific to the region. What are the licensing considerations for APAC? What kind of market entry and partnering strategies should companies look out for when they are planning to enter the region? So I'm honored to have a very distinguished panel of Mayank, who, by the way, delivered a wonderful session highlighting the interesting aspects on the dynamic Asia Pacific region. Along with Mayank, we have Andy, Nong, and Pidar. I would let each one of them make a brief presentation, and then I look forward to an interactive Q&A session. Let's try to make the most out of this very distinguished panel that has been in the thick of growing the businesses of their respective countries in APAC and globally. And the common thread that holds them together is the partnering capabilities that these companies they represent bring along, and the ability to partner with multiple companies in this very diverse area. So first off, being the only lady in the panel, we'll hear from Nong, who is the corporate head of business development with Zulik Pharma. Nong would speak on why to choose Asia, what role would Asia play in the global commercial landscape, what challenges are there to bring innovative products and solutions to the Asia Pacific region, and how is the situation evolving? What kind of models should companies look for to overcome these hurdles? It's an honor to welcome Nong. Nong is a corporate head of business development from Zulik Pharma. In her role, Nong is responsible for building strategic partnership and adding new product pipeline to ZP Therapeutics, or the commercial arm of Zulik Pharma. Her responsibility spans 13 countries in Apac, which includes Southeast Asia, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau. And Nong is a seasoned business development professional with over 15 years in the industry. Her experience covers all the Apac countries, and Nong has held positions in sales and marketing with Janssen and Roche. So I hand it over to Nong to take us through her brief presentation.
Thank you very much, Hemant. So thank you very much, everyone. And thanks, Maya, for nice introductions here. What I'm going to do today is to follow on from what Maya had just presented to you, that there are so many opportunities around the region. And I would like to zoom in about the market access trend in APAC and what is the opportunity for all of you and for us as well, right? So I try to make this session very, very useful for you who already have planned to bring your product into Asia Pacific, okay? All right. Okay, now I'll recap a little bit about ASEAN and North Asia. So if you look at the total world population of 9.7 million, already 2.8 are already in just two countries, India and China, all right? And a little bit more, another half of the world is in US, Japan, and so on, right? But what I am going to introduce to you today is the 13 countries in ASEAN and North Asia. And what I mean by North Asia, I'm referring to Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Macau. And these 13 markets already represent the third largest population in the world with 739 million population. Okay, that's you see on the map. So these 13 markets contribute to 6.2 trillion GDP with 4% growth, very, very healthy, and it is predicted to be continue to grow as well. So this is the land of opportunity. Now, zoom into the healthcare system around the region. According to IQVIA market last year, this 13 market is contributing 5.5 billion pharmaceutical sales with very nice growth of 7% despite of many times of lockdown and a restriction, okay? I mean, if you come to Asia, look around. By the way, I'm based in Bangkok, Thailand. I hope that you miss Thailand somehow. Huh? If you look around, we look the same, right? Left and right, Thai, Malay, Singapore, Myanmar, Cambodia, we look the same, but we are not the same. Our healthcare system is very much fragmented in this 13 market. You are looking at the market that's government or public fund has dominated the market, like Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, or Indonesia. Or you are looking at the market where majority of the people still need to pay for their own medication, like Singapore and Philippines. So very dynamic, and nothing you can say that harmonization, no. Unity, not yet. So you will then need to understand this individual market one by one. Allow me to talk a little bit about Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. What we observe is the government fund is more going toward the primary care. Huh? But For the country like Korea, Malaysia, and Taiwan, we see very, very healthy growth from innovative segment like cancer segment. And in Korea, Indonesia, and Vietnam, if you have planned to come to this region, you need to take note that government introduced so many laws and regulations which promote and protect the local pharmaceutical industry. So it made our life a little bit difficult to get into and promote our product there. Now, that's the government segment or public segment. So it is already, the key markets around the region. Now I'm talking about another segment which has very high growth, very healthy, very interesting, which is the private segment. I'm talking about the segment where the patient has to pay out of their pocket and where they need to fund from the private insurance that they buy themselves or the corporate buy from them. For example, myself, I need to pay for my own insurance or the company pay for me. That's how I can get into innovative product. So this segment has very healthy growth. This is already confirmed by insurance company that the health insurance in the past 5 years in this region has been growing. And this is mainly driven by the growth of middle class population. And this has been projected to grow. Like you can see from urbanization, people in the middle class moving into the city and expect and demand to have better life and also better medication as well. The GDP will continue to grow. And also even during the COVID time, we still consume. The GDP is still very healthy around the region. Okay, so it is very healthy and a very promising market around the region. Now, come to your business. So you have planned to come to Asia and register your product and launch your product, your innovative, expensive product. So you will start first from registration. And in this region, it can take you up to 12 to 14 or 86 months until you get approval. So during this period, you can introduce named patient program just to let your doctor have experience with your product. Maybe the target is pretty small, but at least you can start them to appreciate the efficacy of your product. Now, once you get approval, to maximize the market values, to maximize your brand potential, you will need to aim for reimbursement by the government, okay? So, and in order to get to that point, we are talking about 2 to 3 years time. Okay, now you ask me now, then what I'm going to do during this period. Okay, so what we usually work with our partner and recommend our partner to do is you start first with private market, sell in private hospital or out of pocket segment who can afford high price product. And also it can be paid by their own insurance. With this, the doctors start to have experience and there will be your voice to fight for the reimbursement for you. Between now and then, this can be about 1 year. Once the doctors start to have experience, then you start to get reimbursed at the hospital level, at the city level, at the regional level, until you get the full national coverage or reimbursement. So this will prep you a very nice way, start small and go until you reach the full reimbursement from the government, okay? So this is the way that we typically work with our partner to launch their product in the region. So now, a little bit, I would like to share what I have been observed in the past few years about the trend in the region, in Thailand, in Malaysia, and also Indonesia, that even though the market is, the fund is very limited, but we see more and more that the government give the reimbursement to the expensive and innovative product for oncology, immunology, rheumatology, even rare disease. So this is really happening around the region. Even the country like Philippines, where the people has to pay for their own medication, the government in 2019 already start to fund for rare disease. So this is very promising trend. And even in Singapore, where the healthcare system is very advanced, like what Mayank just mentioned. So we see that the government revamped their national insurance and allow more people to have access to innovative, expensive product. Okay, so let me zoom into one of the disease area that we observe very promising trend, which is cancer treatment. Okay, so by this time, in most of the country in the region, chemotherapy and hormonal therapy, which is the basic care for cancer, already being reimbursed. And this is mainly driven by number of cases, which is very high in the region. We see this very prominent in the type of cancer where we have very high incidence, such as lung cancer, breast cancer, and we see the trend is going toward GI cancer and liver cancer as well. So the advocacy group is getting stronger in the region. Usually we are very preserved, but now more and more the patient is speak up, the caregiver is speaking up as well. So the trend is going toward to force the government to fund for more innovative product. For cancer treatment, we see good trend that the government start to give reimbursement to targeted therapy, immunotherapy, and soon it's going to go to gene therapy and personalized therapy. This is the trend that we see at the moment. So allow me to share a few cases that we have been working in these few years with our partner, how to get the product to get reimbursement around the region. Okay, so case number one is we try to get one product to be 100% reimbursed. It is very expensive. That's never happened. So what we discuss with doctors, with partners, with the policymaker is, why don't you put a cap into your fund? If you cannot give us 100%, just put a cap, give the limited fund. At least the doctor can start prescription and has experience, and patients have access and benefit for good product. So that can be a way to get patients to have access to expensive product. Or another case is one of our partner has the product which has very good, it has many indications. So the government was reluctant to give its reimbursement. So what we discussed with all the stakeholders is, why don't you give its reimbursed for specific indication first? Prioritize the indication where the patient will be benefit from this product the most, and then start from there. It can be first line, it can be second line, but we need to start from somewhere to let the physician has experience, and also the patient have a chance to get benefit from the product. So that will be another way to start to get the reimbursement in the region. And the last case study that I would like to share, and I can see this more and more around the region, is in the case that our partner has flexibility in terms of cost of product, we would recommend to opt to launch the second brand at the low price. With this way, they then protect the brand outside the region and allow patients to have access to the product at the lower price in both private segment and get more chance to reimburse in government segment as well. So this is a few ways that I would like to share that don't be scared. The restriction is there, the fund is limited, but there will be a way always in this region to get your product to grab the potential in the region. So a few key takeaways that I would like to share with you today is Apac is the growing market. So please, if you have good product, you are interested, come to this region. It's the land of opportunity, especially for innovative products. You just need to identify where to play, how to win, where is sort of fun for your business. You trade off between high price in private or large access in public segment, and then plan very well and work together with doctor, with patient, caregiver, policymaker to make plan to have your product reimbursed by the government. That will be the guarantees of the long-term success. Okay, now that's my presentation, and I would like to share with you a little bit about how Solid help partner to have access to Asia Pacific. Basically, so like originally the company is from Switzerland, but we have been around in the region about 100 years. So in many countries, we've been working with government, hospital, doctors, patients for many decades until we have become an important part of pharmaceutical business around the region. Okay, so what we are now doing is, first of all, we do the logistics service for clinical trial. We have sales and marketing or commercial team to promote, register, and launch the product. Definitely, our core business remain in the distribution. We do import and warehouse distribution and logistics in the country. We manage the China. We have biggest B2B e-commerce platform to link your product to hospital and retail pharmacy. We have a team of nurses, which we call patient care, to introduce access program, manage assurance program for partner. We work with World Bank subsidiary to manage the insurance claims around the region. And lastly, with this all of the information, our analytics team will make sense out of the data and then provide the insight back to the partner. Where we do this is in 13 markets around the region, which already give you an access to 90% of healthcare customers around the region. Our regional distribution center is located in Singapore, same to our corporate office, where our partner will ship bulk of the product into Singapore. We then redress and repack and ship out of Singapore to all 13 markets. This will help with the MOQ and also help to solve the problem with 13 languages as well. And last to mention, which become very important in the past 2 years, is Zulik has the largest pharma cold chain infrastructure in Asia Pacific, which we've been helping and working with government to store and deliver a COVID vaccine around the region. Okay, so our commercial team is established in all 13 markets and very ready to discuss with you to plan for the launch of the product, starting from plan for registration, manage pharmacovigilance, provide medical affairs, government affairs, market access. That's for the pre-launch, and then work hand in hand with marketing, sales, and digital team to promote your product, and also allocated alliance management to manage the business for you. So you don't need to talk to 13 people in 13 countries. So you talk to one point of contact from the regional team. And last to mention is we are very proud that by working with us, you can be sure that we stick to the highest quality, compliance, and code of conduct. And this is the way we work with the partner. So I would love to talk more and share more with you about Asia Pacific, our hometown. But in case you have plans to come to Asia to expand your business, please visit us in Singapore. Our office is located in Singapore. Please visit us or visit us in any country around the region. You are more than welcome. Thank you. Over to you, Harman.
Thank you, Nong, and thanks for the very insightful presentation, elucidating a clear pathway to introduce products in Asia region. You covered a very interesting topic about market access, which is complex, but is an interesting area to be when introducing new products. So thanks, Nong, for all your insights. We look forward to the questions after both the other speakers have delivered their short message. Next off, we have Andy. He's the APAC director of Fuji Pharma and is responsible for all businesses across APAC countries. He would be briefly speaking on the entry and partnering strategies in APAC. He spent the last 2 decades in various multinational pharma companies across APAC countries with various positions ranging from business unit head, commercial director, global work stream co-head, managing director of a pharma MNC in Southeast Asia. He's also served as senior BD director and distribution MNC in Vietnam. And he's also had the opportunity to work as executive director and CEO of a private medical center. So there's a lot of experience sitting behind this gentleman. He's a BSc, MBA, and currently a PhD student as well. And if Andy finds time, you will find him on an ultra trail running maybe 100 kilometers. So off to you, Andy.
Thank you, Hemant, for your kind introductions. Thank you, Christina, Jane, and PharmaSynergy's group for organizing this great event. And it's precious to meeting many good friends again here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and to my fellow panelists and ladies and gentlemen. So I will make my presentation into two parts for today. The part one, let me introduce a little bit on the Pharma Group. On the part two, I will go a little bit more on the go-to-market strategies, expansions models, and some elements to consider to enter into Asia, especially for the non-Asian companies. Yep, patience for life, that's our tagline. That will give us the purpose and meaning in our job and live a happier life. Yeah. So who is Lue Pharma Group? Lue Pharma Group is listed in Hong Kong. We are a member of Lue Life Science Group. It's an international pharmaceutical company dedicated to research and development, manufacturing, and sales of innovative medications. So it's founded about 28 years ago by our chairman, Mr. Liu, and Mr. Robin and Mr. Yang in Yantai, the Shandong province of China. So under the Lue Life Science Group, there are four big divisions of businesses. So we have pharmaceutical, where we are dealing with all the medications, be it a 505(b)(2), be it a biologic, be it a biosimilars and generics. We have healthcare services, where we run hospitals. We do have hospitals in Singapore. We do have hospitals in China. Indeed, we run one of the biggest chains of hospitals in Australia. Yeah, we have 16 mental health hospitals across the countries. And we have diagnostic divisions. This diagnostic division, we have regional headquarters in Singapore. We have things like a simple red kit, ticket test, and PCR and NGS, especially for the cancers. Yeah. And next we have these investment divisions. As I'm speaking today, we have animal health businesses focused on injectables. We even have a new vaccine plant focusing on VLP platform. Very interesting. That VLP technology that produces multiple times of neutralizing antibodies versus mRNA, currently at phase 2 in many countries. And we do own also a biotech plant, which we call Born Biotech, which produces biologics and also biosimilars. Right. So we have 8 manufacturing plants with more than 30 production lines as of today, and sales across of 80 countries. Okay, how Lue Pharma, especially the Pharma Group, organize anything that outside China we consider a Lue Pharma International. Yeah. So the sales are across more than 80 countries now outside China, despite only about a 6-year-old international pharma team. We headquartered in New Jersey, where our CEO sits, which I'm reporting to. We have 3 R&D centers in China, in US, Boston, and in Germany, right? So we have more than 1,000 R&D professionals, with 240 patents have been granted in China, and more than 665 patents have been granted in international. Some of our pipelines in the international market predominantly, are focusing on CNS oncologies that cover indication across bipolar, schizophrenia, MDD, Alzheimer's disease, depressions, anxiety, and Parkinson's. Similarly, in China, very much focusing on CNS and oncology. Some of these key products that we have in the regions and in China, and specifically, I would like to highlight a few. Seroquel. Seroquel is an asset that we acquired from AstraZeneca back in 2018 with about $538 million for 51 countries' rights. And the multi-days rivastigmine transdermal patch. This is one of the biggest brands in Europe manufacturing which we acquired back in 2017 with about $275 million. And another one that I put on a star here, very interesting product in Chinese, we call it basically it's a red yeast extract. It's the only patented red yeast extract that with more than 60 clinical trials and US FDA phase 2 trials. Currently, this product in China and in Singapore is promoted by AstraZeneca team alongside the #1 statin in the market. A very, very interesting product. This product reduces LDL up to 20%, triglyceride 15%, and HDL improved by 5%. It is available for the export market. So it is registered as a traditional medicines, complementary medicine, health supplements, and prescriptions medicine depending on countries' regulations. For instance, in Norway, this product is registered as a prescriptions medicines. In Singapore, this product is made in Singapore, by the way. In Singapore, it's registered as a complementary medicines. Right. In a global presence, what outside China, basically we divide international pharma business into 3 big regions. So the America and the LATAM, and the UK, Europe, and the GCC, and the Apac regions, which I run the Apac regions, right? So closest to the Apac regions, these are the business footprint we have in about 16 countries, predominantly on Serocorp businesses and also our OTC businesses at this moment, and also our patch businesses. Specifically, I would like to highlight some of these great countries which we are making inroad on very, very interesting discussion, especially leveraging on the One Belt, One Road initiative. A lot of interesting discussions have been going on with this. Especially also, I would like to highlight the GBA. Yeah, this Greater Bay Area, this nice city and 2 special administrative territory with more than 80 million populations and GDP of close to $2 trillion. It is about 10 times the populations of Hong Kong and more than 5 times the GDP in Hong Kong. And basically, when a product once it's available in Hong Kong, you can make it to this GPA via especially the reimbursements of Hong Kong University hospitals. Yeah, and this is especially important when you are making your products into Hong Kong, and especially the oncology candidates. Immediately you access to the 80 million populations, but not the Hong Kong populations alone. Right, so much so about Luye Pharma. And this is part 2 of my presentations, just to share some pointers and thought processes that we'll be considering to make our businesses entry into the region, especially in the Asia. There's no fancy slides, just a couple of slides I would like to share. So the market expansions will be driven more than the region healthy GDP, as what Mayank had mentioned and also Hammond had mentioned, right? So Asia's remain the growth firmly rooted for many years to come. So when it comes to entry strategy and expansions model, from my left, typically you have a B2B licensing. To the right, typically you have your own team. Yeah, there are a couple of factors and differentiations that we can consider when making a business entry into these regions. For instance, what are the stages of growth? If this is the first molecule outside Europe or US or even China that come to the regions, potentially you're considering straightforward a B2B licensing, where you are collecting your down payment, a milestone, and your royalties. Yeah. But on the other hand, on the right, where you have a rich portfolios of medications that are ready to come into these regions, potentially you would consider forming your own team. There are pros and cons. There are no right and wrong, especially in terms of deciding which best model fit into the expansions of business. Yeah, indeed, the local knowledge also play a very important role when deciding which are the best model to adopt. The other considerations that which we will take into, especially deciding the expansions model, first feasibility study, the market sizing, and where over here, the pink boxes are very interesting in terms of tax policies and tax implications. That could be easily a 10 to 15 points of EBITDA differences, right? When you have a tax rate differences, when you form your local entities across the regions, be it Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, yeah. And the cultural differences and people differences these are very, very prominent as well across mixed countries in Asia Pacific. So the various belief, behavior, even languages, for instance, in Vietnam, very much you need a local talent. I would say that for you to form a local entity and to aim for reimbursement. For instance, for China's, they always believe on these 996 and 007 are working hour, but that not exactly applicable, and I would say that it's not practicable in most of the countries, especially in Hong Kong and in Singapore. In terms of pipelines, yeah, we don't build a one team just for one single product. That would be difficult to justify, especially your P&L and your EBITDA over the years, right? So if you have a rich pipeline readily over the next few years, potentially that you're considering also starting your own team. So in a nutshell, the 5W and 1H is still applied, right? So what exactly the product, be it an NCE, a generic, or 505(b)(2), what are the unique selling points? What are the pricing and support investment? And who are the best partners? And what are the strategies? And what are the business models? Which channels? Regulatory filing plan? When exactly the right time? And in terms of regional office and tax positions as well, understanding is important in making the entry into the regions. This will be my last slide, making the most of opportunity in Asia Pacific, especially making entries. Regulatory and registration requirement is really complex in the regions. So companies really need to think locally rather than a single market. Yeah, as differentiate and identify the what, who, how, and when, and where exactly influencing your expansion models. To consider a different go-to-market strategies, expansions model based on the growth and the pipeline and the opportunities and the readiness of the company. In terms of partnering, I would like to touch about the critical success factor depending very much on terms of understanding of the cultures and people and the effective alliance management skill and the experience in the local countries per se. For country to countries are different, right? So sustainable growth also hinge on a close collaboration and understanding of the speed of the response and together creating the continuous value to the patients in the specific market per se. The diversity and opportunity in the regions require company to develop local strengths and local understanding and market knowledge and potentially a regional talent while partnering effectively. For instance, you see Louis Pharma in the Asia Pacific region, in the Asia Pacific regions. So what we have on top of partnering effectively with respective different partners across the regions and with our own team of mixtures, we do run an Asia Pacific Psychiatrist Conference year over year, where we putting all the key opinion leaders and setting an eminent platform for healthcare professionals to stimulate exchange, right? To encourage more treatment and diagnosis. For instance, the prodromal state of psychosis and treating MDD patients in line with the ongoing pandemic. You know, Louis Pharma are basically very much at this moment concentrating on CNS, and mental health is one of our core business. Yeah. So we launch also, we care about mental health initiative. So last but not least, instead of focusing a single dominant growth strategy, so we should pursuing a multiple path to optimize the growth opportunity. For instance, some of my peers have been saying, you have this in-licensing potentially you would have out licensing as well. For instance, that's what we are doing in Lue Pharma. Some of these products are not fit into a CNS and oncologist portfolio. We are actively considering out licensing opportunities. At the same time, we are also actively discussing in licensing opportunity to enrich our CNS portfolio. Yeah, and even from countries to countries in Asia Pacific. Yeah, when you talk about a B2B, a B2C, potentially in certain country you might not want to even set up your own team. Not for now, not for the next 5 years, 10 years, for instance. Yeah, non-discriminations. I would say that in Myanmar, I would not want to set up my team for now, but definitely I'm looking at setting up my team in Australia, which businesses are concentrating only on few key cities, potentially also a country with a lot of potential like Indonesia. Yeah. Thank you for your time. This is the end of my sharing. And feel free to connect me and discuss more on collaborations opportunity. And back to you, Hammond. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andy, and thanks for your insights on a very diverse region. We see questions on the chat talking about the diversity in the region and the complexity of getting a EU dossier registered in this very diverse ASEAN thing. So I also hear, Christina, that there are questions amongst the audience. So let me quickly introduce our next distinguished panelist, Peter, who is the Executive Vice President, APAC Alvogen. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Lotus Pharmaceuticals. And Peter is responsible for executing the growth strategy across APAC market. Peter joined Alvogen in 2009, and after 9 years with a generic pharmaceutical company Actavis in various roles, he has demonstrated his ability to lead the business by delivering a high CAGR and EBITDA. And Peter graduated with a medical doctor's degree from the Sofia University of Medicine and has an MBA degree from the University of Sofia. A very, very seasoned professional who knows APAC very well and brings in lovely insights around partnering and growing businesses in APAC. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Heman, for the kind introduction. And I would like also to express my gratitude to PharmaSynergy team for giving the opportunity to Alvogen Lotus to participate in this nice and I think very, very fruitful event. So I will start first with Lotus introduction and then touch base a little bit on the key specifics for the region. Of course, I will not repeat what the previous speakers already mentioned about the growth opportunity in Asia. And then I will give you a few examples of the deals that we have accomplished throughout the last 5 years. Okay, starting with Lotus, just to avoid any misunderstanding, because Alvogen and Lotus, I mean, they are two companies. Actually, Lotus has been part of Alvogen family since 2014, when Alvogen became a majority shareholder in Lotus, acquiring around 63% in the company. So Lotus has been listed on the main board of Taipei Stock Exchange. And again, Alvogen has been the biggest shareholder. As you might know already, Alvogen as a shareholder has exited Lotus in November, December last year. So this exit is subject for regulatory approval. So the new consortium of investors who took over the Alvogen stake in Lotus are two. Astic is the investment vehicle of Robert Westman, who is the chairman of Lotus, also the chairman and the executive CEO and founder of Alvogen and Alvotech. And the other investor is Inobic. Inobic is the healthcare investment fund of PTT, and PTT is one of the largest enterprises in Southeast Asia. It's a Thai headquarter company with market cap over $35 billion. So with that, I will start with the introduction. We are effectively a global company with global footprint through direct presence in Asian markets. So we are covering majority of the Asian markets either with own infrastructure or through distributors, which are promoting our products under our label. In addition to that, we have extensive B2B partners network of key leading companies as customers in markets like US, Europe, Japan, Latin America, and Middle East. In terms of portfolio pipeline strategy, we have a hybrid approach. So we believe that the hybrid approach is the formula of success, and it is actually a strategy which can deliver sustainable and profitable growth of the business. So our shareholders, the key shareholders, they have been always focused on the profitable growth, because I mean we are not just obsessive increasing the revenue of the company year on year at any cost. So very much we are focused on again delivering profitable growth year on year, and this was the case actually in the last 5 years. So when it comes to pipeline strategy, again, we are obviously the backbone of the portfolio and the pipeline are the branded generics, because we are coming from the generic industry as a background and also as a focus. In addition to that, we have OTC products in some of the countries. We have also interest in biosimilars, and we have also biosimilars on the market. Since recently, we have started to focus also on new chemical entities, and big area of interest for Alvogen Group companies and Lotus in particular. Also tail-end brands. I refer here to off-patent products, which from time to time big pharma companies are divesting. And also, of course, interest for us are complex products. I refer here to 505(b)(2) products, for example, incremental modified drugs or fixed dose combinations with preferably with a very strong clinical development package. So our company has very strong, I think, portfolio and pipeline, which is quite well diversified throughout different therapeutic areas. I will show in the other slides. And the key drivers for the pipeline and the portfolio are obviously the R&D and the business development. So we have again combination of R&D and business development. R&D is pivotal. If you look at our current 5-year plan in delivering the business objective for the company, 60-70% of the sales and the profit will be driven by the R&D products which are already launched or about to be launched in the next 3 to 5 years. However, business development is also a key contributor to the success, and particularly in Asia Pacific market. For the last 6-7 years, we have finalized successfully more than 100 business basically deals for more than 100 products, which are already launched in Asia, or some of them are about to be launched in a registration phase. So we have pretty decent business development team. When I say we, it's of course not only Lotus business development team, but also Alvogen business development team, because we have been working very closely, being in the same family of companies with the different Alvogen business development teams. What I refer here is obviously Alvogen US business development team, Adalvo business development team, previously Alvogen European business development team, which was European business was divested to Zentiva and also our tech business development team. The company has reached around $450 million revenue and over $100 million EBITDA in 2021, which is a remarkable achievement. So we have also achieved more than 10% average growth rate since 2016, which is organically driven, which in a region like Asia Pacific, I think it's a very strong achievement and reference for our team. Next slide. So this slide illustrates basically our business model. Again, we have two commercial platforms. One is Asia Pacific, where we are present in 12 markets. So we are covering, for example, markets like Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, China, Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Again, it's a mixture of own commercial network and also distributors. Outside Asia Pacific, this is the global, this is the export, so-called for us export business platform. We are covering currently 80 markets through leading customers. And currently we have products in around 50 markets and marketing authorizations on the way. And again, the objective based on our plan is to launch our internal pipeline in more than 80 markets by 2024. Next slide. On the therapeutic areas, like I mentioned already, we have quite well diversified portfolio. CNS is currently the largest therapeutic area for Lotus, taking into account both Asia Pacific and also the export platforms. The biggest product for the company is buprenorphine naloxone sublingual film, which is currently on the market in US. So we have a partnership with Augen US. So Augen US is a distributor for our product. So this is a product which currently holds #1 market share in US in buprenorphine naloxone film. So we surpassed the originator on this product, so which is a very strong reference, not only for the product, but also, of course, for the commercial capability of our partner, Augen US. The second largest therapeutic area for us is oncology. So the oncology is, as a therapeutic area, is driven by both business development and also internal R&D. Our flagship product in oncology is lenalidomide. So we have announced 2 days ago that we launched lenalidomide in more than 15 countries in European Union, among them UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, through a strategic partner on a business-to-business model, which followed previously launched again through a strategic partner in Central Eastern Europe with 11 markets. So lenalidomide is aimed for launch in close to 90 markets by 2024. And of course, the biggest opportunity will be in US, where we have already obtained tentative approval. Very important also therapeutic areas for us, although they're less size compared to CNS oncology, is anti-obesity, where we have a premium position in Korean market, also CVS, nephrology, women healthcare, and osteoporosis. In terms of geography of sales, more or less our revenue is 50-50 split between Asia and export markets. So Asia is contributing 56%, the rest is contributed by export. The biggest contributor in Asia is Korea, which accounts of 75% of Asian sales, followed by Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and a few smaller markets in like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Hong Kong. And export is obviously dominated currently by US. However, we have also a very strong presence in Europe through partners, which accounts close to 20%. This is a snapshot of 2021 sales. Next slide. So on this slide, you can see basically a snapshot of our business development track record as a company, as a Lotus, since 2016. So currently we have more than 50 partners, among them companies like Novartis, AstraZeneca, Takeda, Eli Lilly, Bayer, Vivas, Mitra, PharmaMar, Lue, of course, Augen, Family Alvotech, etc., etc. More than 60 products have been finalized, actually, as deals with 5 brand acquisitions, 10 new chemical entities / complex products, 505(b)(2), 4 biosimilars, and more than 40 generics. So in terms of revenue, the business development deals that we have executed so far will deliver revenue of, they're projected to deliver revenue of $150 million in 2016. Obviously, some of the products are already commercial, some of them are under registration phase or under reimbursement. So again, the business development for us is a major focus as a company, and we are, I mean, you can see here we have a very strong track record. Obviously, so far the focus has been, when it comes to business development, mainly in building the Asia Pacific business. However, we are starting now to do deals to in-license products for our export platform. For example, 2 years ago we have signed an in-licensing deal for a respiratory product. It's a kind of a co-development deal for a respiratory product which is targeting US market. So the in-licensing pillar for export market is something that we will strengthen as of this year. So we want to put more efforts, and the objective here is to secure us a bigger and more interesting pipeline for export markets, specifically for US, but also Europe. Next slide. Yes, please, next slide. So I can skip this slide because I think the previous presenters, they very well explained why Asia Pacific is a lucrative opportunity from market size point of view and also from growth perspective. We can go to the next slide. I think this is a good slide which shows kind of comparison of Asia versus Europe. I mean, in Asia, the pharmaceutical industry is very fragmented. So you have a very strong local industry with many players, right? For example, in Korea, you have more than 200 local companies which are not only doing R&D for the local market, and some of them, of course, for export, but also manufacturing, and also they have their own commercial platforms. There are not many, obviously in Asia, there are not as many multinational companies. I refer here to the generic companies, right? For example, I mean, Stada is one of the leading companies in Europe, which is barely present in Asia. The market access is very complicated, not only the regulatory piece, but also the commercial. I mean, for example, if you take as an example the new chemical entities or complex products like 505(b)(2), regulatory is definitely one of the challenges to overcome. And then, of course, the second challenge is the reimbursement. And the reimbursement can take sometimes 2 to 3 years negotiations. So there are countries, for example, like Korea, where the reimbursement health insurance fund is notorious when it comes to negotiations and price reductions. And this is the reason this is the reason why some of the multinational companies, big pharma companies, are launching their new products, for example, in Korea later than their launches in US or Europe, because Korea is a reference country to some of the top markets in Europe. After the reimbursement hurdle, there's a commercial hurdle, because many of these markets are driven by, especially if you have a product in a hospital channel, are driven by listing process. So you need first to list your product. And this is a long process. I mean, sometimes you have to wait for 1 or 2 years, depending on the product. For example, for new chemical entity, it can take probably 1 or 2 years to get listing in a hospital. And if you are successful in listing hospital, then you can expand your, obviously, customer base. For the generic products, also is quite challenging. I mean, the listing process can take between 1 to 2 years, and this is the reason in some of these countries the newly launched products, the newly generic launched products, it takes like 18-24 months after having the product commercially available, physically available in the country, until reaching meaningful scale of sales. It's just because it takes very slow, right? This process is very slow. It's not like in Europe or US. It's a totally different game here. I mean, this market access obviously is a big challenge, right? And in the same time, also it provides it provides high degree of stability. Volatility here is much less compared to US and Europe. So it has also, has pros and cons. Another important, I think, specific for Asia, which is kind of unique, is there's a relatively, it's quite low generic penetration in specific therapeutic areas in particular markets. For example, in Taiwan, the penetration for in oncology and also in Korea is extremely low. And the reason being is the customers, I refer customers, doctors, also hospitals, and of course end users, the patients, they are very focused on the branded products. And of course, not only this, but also the system somehow also is blocking the generic penetration, because the co-payment as a percentage is more or less the same in these countries for example, for oncology products. So only the difference is the absolute amount, but sometimes this can be covered by the health insurance, additional health insurance plan. And hospital listing process, I already mentioned, this is specific feature for Korea, for Taiwan. Also, this exists obviously in China, Thailand, and again, this is important dynamic which has to be taken into account. Next slide. So in terms of business development track record and what we have as a strategy going forward, I mean, we are quite open to different models. So obviously we do a lot of in licensing. We are very focused, as I mentioned, on brand acquisition deals from big pharma companies. So we have a very strong track record here. Not only in Asia, but also previously in Europe. Specific area which we want to further strengthen is co-development. I already mentioned our objective is to add more products to our pipeline through co-development, not only specifically for Asia, but also for the export markets. Also, we have in many of the markets distribution deals with some of the companies which I showed in the previous slide. So this is another deal pure, which also we are focused on. Type of products I already mentioned. The brand acquisitions are our, let's say, top priority, because brand acquisition is a very strong growth tool, and this is comparable to M&A. But of course, the risk with the brand acquisition is much lower compared to acquiring a company, especially in Asia, because you don't see challenge from cultural perspective, from integration perspective. Of course, integration in the brand acquisition deal is mainly related with tech transfer and of course taking over the commercial phase. But as a company like ours, we don't see an issue with this, because we have presence in the majority of the markets here. And also we have a dedicated tech transfer team, which has proven efficacy in bringing products internally or transferring products from big pharma to a dedicated CMO. 505(b)(2), definitely it's a lucrative proposition, especially for North Asia. I refer to Korea as a top priority, also Taiwan. I think there's a 505(b)(2) is something which will come a little bit later in Southeast Asia as a penetration, but we want to be kind of in the first wave. So we are already rolling out some of the 505(b)(2) products in Southeast Asia around the registration. Complex generics also very interesting, particularly long-acting injectables, and of course biosimilars. Therapeutic areas, I already mentioned obesity, anti-obesity, women healthcare, anti-addiction, and nephrology. These are our top therapeutic areas. So when it comes to the pipeline approach in these therapeutic areas, we have hybrids. So in all these therapeutic areas, you can see in Asia Pacific that we have branded products either based on in licensing or distribution or brand acquisition. And also we have for example, branded generic products and also some complex generic products. So we are using the branded products as a stepping stone for setting up the therapeutic area as a new therapeutic area, or also strengthening existing therapeutic area, and also to somehow enhance, to facilitate the uptake of the branded generic sales in this therapeutic area. As markets of interest, the key markets of interest as far as Asia is concerned: Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines. We have now commercial presence in Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, very strong commercial presence. Vietnam, we are starting as of second quarter with own team, and the same applies for Philippines. In China, we have a local business development team and also regulatory team. China for us is based on a distribution model, so we have distributors, local companies. This is the model that we have. Japan, for the time being, we have a strategic partnership with Fuji Pharmaceuticals, which is a shareholder in Lotus. So they are our commercial they are our commercial preferred partner in Japan. And also we are covering some of the small markets through distributors, like I mentioned, Singapore, for example, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Next slide.
Peter, I think we'll have to expedite. We have quite a few questions in the audience as well.
Okay, should I pause for the questions, or before I go on?
Christina,
we have enough time. We have enough time, so let's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Please go on.
Okay. All right. So if I go through the just specific characteristic of the key markets, I mean, we have obviously in Korea, It's our top market in Asia. So Korea has 3 main channels: hospital, clinics, and drugstores. So we are, for the time being, covering with own team both hospital and clinics channel, which are contributing 90% of the market. We have also a relatively big product in the drugstore channel, but based on a co-promotion because we don't have our own team. Korea, very important is to mention that the biggest payer here is the National Health Insurance Fund, and again, this is quite challenging when it comes to bringing innovation to Korea, because you have to really negotiate with them. And again, this is one of the lower price markets for innovative products because of the reasons which I already explained. In Korea, because for the generic products you have to do a local deal study if you're importing the product. For new chemical entities, complex generics sometimes, or 505(b)(2), sometimes you can waive the study based on a, for example, EU or US study, or sometimes you have to do a relatively small bridging study. But again, this is a complex environment, regulatory, so it requires a lot of expertise. Okay, so next slide, please. So I'll just go quickly through 2 case studies. One is Mercilon acquisition. We acquired this product in 2016 from Bayer. And Mercilon currently is the largest OTC oral contraceptive brand in Korea. So we managed to increase the market share to 45%, and it's one of the the best products that we have in Korea. Next slide, please. Next is Qsymia. Qsymia is an example of a proprietary product. So it's a 505(b)(2) with a very strong clinical profile. The originator is a company called Vivus. It's a US company. So we licensed Qsymia in 2017 from Vivus. It's an anti-obesity drug. So it's considered as one of the most effective anti-obesity products existing currently. So we launched Qsymia in December 2019. So it was just before the COVID. And in 2021, our actual sales are $90 million already with this product, which is a remarkable achievement. So we are currently the second biggest brand as a market share after Saxenda in Korea in anti-obesity segment. And here it's important to mention that because of the clinical study, we have also obtain actually data exclusivity protection in Korea, which is very important. I think this is good thing for Korea. If you are bringing complex products, especially 505(b)(2) or new chemical entities with a strong clinical profile, you are potentially eligible to data exclusivity protection. Next slide. So next slide is about Taiwan. Here in Taiwan, similar to Korea, we have 3 channels. Hospital channel is dominant, 85%. Clinics is only 5%, and 10 drugstores. So Lotus is present in the 3 channels, hospital, clinics. We have very strong position in the clinics. We also improve significantly our capability in the hospital, and now we are starting to penetrate in the drugstore channel with over-the-counter products. So We think that in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll become one of the top players in the drugstore channel based on business development, mainly brand acquisitions and also in licensing of niche OTC products. Similar to Korea, it's a national health insurance fund, the biggest pair, also very, very hard to negotiate when it comes to innovation, new chemicals, or 505(b)(2) product, even also biosimilars. So this needs to be taken into account. And again, what I mentioned already, Taiwan is very famous with preference on the brands among the generics. I can give you an example with Glivec, imatinib. This is the Novartis brand. So the product is already off patent here since 2014, I think, or 15. There are 5 generics, and Glivec still holds 90% market share. So this can tell you a lot. This is something you cannot see in Europe or US for sure, even 6 months after the launch of the generics.
Peter, sorry to intervene. I'm told there are a lot of questions on the audience. So if you can take 2 more minutes, and then the audience really wants to ask a lot of questions. So let's give them the time.
Okay. I think maybe we can go to basically, I don't know. Yeah, we can go to the questions straight away because more or less I'm done with the interesting part, and the other slides that I'm to show are more case studies on different products which we have successfully in license, either based on a brand acquisition model or based on distribution or in licensing.
Okay, thanks, Peter, and I apologize, but I think it's good that we are having the question and answers. So we'll start with the questions from the audience in Amsterdam. And for those joining us online, could I request you to activate your camera so that we can see you? And those on the chat, I will read out your questions if they're not yet answered and pass it on to the relevant panel member, if that's okay. So we start with the questions from the audience in Amsterdam.
Hi, Petar. Thank you for the presentation. This is Pascal from company Pharma10, which you probably know.
Yeah.
I was actually curious how your approach towards China is at the moment. So what are the key products you want to launch there, and what is your, let's say, strategy to reach the market in China?
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. It's nice to meet you. And of course, we honor a lot our relationship with Pharma10. China, to be honest, for us, it's a completely opportunistic approach because China is unpredictable when it comes to regulatory and also commercial. Because China introduced a couple of years ago central bidding system, which drives significant price erosion. So what we have done is we have selected around 15 products from our pipeline, and also some of them in license from US. And the main criteria for us are these are products which are for the time being they are outside of the scope of the tender system, and also these are products with relatively lower R&D spend, because in China you have sometimes you need to invest in a local clinical study, and this is being monitored on a regular basis because obviously there's a lot of dynamic. The fact that the particular product is currently not in the tender doesn't mean that it will not be the tender in 6 to 12 months. So we are not developing products standalone for China. It's an opportunistic approach. So even China in our 5-year plan is not really a placeholder because it's unpredictable.
Hello, good morning. This is Eduardo from Galenicum. This is a question for Kanunjin from her presentation. You presented in your presentation that there was like 3 different access models into the Apac markets. The captation model, the narrow indication approach, and also the second brand, to launch the second brand. No? So from these three approaches, which do you believe has been the most successful for a new company, for a new entry in these markets? Which should be the first approach that do you believe that they need to analyze if they want to be there? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and interesting question. I don't have very smart answer at this point, but really it depends on the nature of your product and your background in terms of costing. Okay, so definitely it is mainly company decision if you should to launch the second brand. This can be implemented immediately outside the decision of the government, which you can benefit from this immediately. While another two option, which is a capitation, that will take time for you to discuss with doctors and company policy makers in order to make decision. This may take a year or more until you reach to the point that they agree to give you the cap or they approve for certain indication. I would say that if you don't have flexibility in terms of the supply cost, then you cannot run away from a capitation or another model of up to reimburse for a certain indication. I hope this somehow gives you some idea on which way is better for you guys. Maybe from the panel, anything to add?
Anybody wants to add to it from the panelists?
Yeah, maybe just allow me to add. I think if you are first to the countries, and the second brand is not really applicable, right? The second brand is only applicable when you have your first brand ready in the market. Right.
Thank you.
I cannot hear that we have this strategy in Thailand. I think this is well-established approach in Thailand, and we have applied this for some of the tail end brands that we acquired, right, from Big Pharma. So we produce a second brand as an authorized generic, piggyback on the main dossier, main indication. So as far as I know, also Pfizer and other companies, they have been doing this with relatively big success.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, recently we have a case that our partner opted not to launch their original brands in the region, but jump directly to the second brand as well. So, but they have a lot of flexibility in terms of costing. That's why they make that strategic decision.
Right. We have one question that I think was answered online, but if we could run it once again, I'll pass the microphone now.
Okay, so maybe I take it. So there are a series of questions, and Nong, thank you for answering it.
Sorry, Hemant, we still have questions here. I just
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, I missed it.
Sorry, just a second.
Hi, this is Frank Michel from AMW. I have a question for Kanunji, because you elaborated so much on the different countries, on the market entry, and you did not mention the tender market. Can you elaborate a little bit on the tender market in the region, in oncology in particular?
Asia maybe too well if you mention tender. So a tender is a part of government reimbursement. So your product may be under reimbursement or not reimbursement, but if there is a need for the public segment to procure huge amount of a product, definitely tender becomes a major part of this business. And in number of countries, in order to be able to participate in the tender, you have to be in the list of the government. The molecule itself have to be in the list, and then you participate in the tender. So meaning that the floor is open to everyone, not just your brand, but also the generics as well. the government might announce the price, the minimum price, the maximum price for tender, but you can go in with any price. And number of times that we see that the price that the government closed for tender, it's much lower than the price that they announced. So this is something that, as I mentioned, that it's majority of the government segment budget is going to this, but you need to trade off that between giving access via government tender at the very low price versus, you opt to maintain outside the tender and enjoy the premium price. What would be the trade-off for you? And we have partner as well that eventually they decide not to participate in the tender because of the price point is too low for them to participate. Or if they opt to join the tender, it has to be the pricing strategy behind that, meaning that your team in the ground has to have very good insight what will be the optimum price that you should go in. I hope this answers your question somehow.
Yeah, thank you very much. We can now move to online questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. So most of the questions are around regulatory. I'll read out one or two and hopefully we cover most of it. There's a common thread growing. The regulatory process for obtaining marketing authorizations in ASEAN region, even though we hear about regional harmonization effort, is highly country specific. How difficult and costly is it to adapt an approved European CTD dossier to the country-specific requirements of different countries? And sorry, panel, I'll hand over to Nong because she's actually taken the pains of answering it. So Nong, all to you first.
Okay, yeah, feel free to add if I miss out anything. So basically, at least if you already start from ASEAN CTD, EU CTD, that's good enough to start. But when you have that CTD, then the regulatory team then need to convert European CTD into ASEAN ACTD, which it's going to be our job to do that and then translate into different local languages and then submit for you. So that's a good start. But the gap that we normally see is not on the CTD itself. It's on the Zone 4B stability data for ASEAN. Okay, this is not applicable for North Asia, but it is a must for ASEAN that you need to have at least the 6-month accelerated data with the submission. Okay, so in the starting point, if you don't have full Zone 4B stability data, you come in with accelerate and promise to the authority that whenever it is ready, then you continue to file to add, then your shelf life will get expanded accordingly. So that's the plan.
Thanks, Nong. Panelists, Peter, Mayank, Andy, any comments to add?
Not from my side. Of course, this depends on the product, right? If it is generic or 505(b)(2), also where has been approved previously, right? If it is US, and of course the market that you're targeting. Yeah, you need to have a very strong team, regulatory, and to be prepared to spend money. That's for sure. It's not cheap here.
I would just like to add that it also depends that which target market we are talking about, because the acceptance of clinical data as reference countries for different markets also varies a lot, even in terms of COPPs. So we've been talking about bringing innovation from Asia to Europe, while we still don't have a very clear pathway as to how Chinese innovation can be brought into Southeast Asia. So indeed, in the next couple of years, we'll see a lot of commotion. But everyone here believes that there will be some kind of harmonization across in Southeast Asia.
Thanks a lot, Mayank. Thanks, everyone. So this clearly shows, yes, local expertise, feet on the ground, local knowledge, and ability to modify the dossiers to the local needs is very important. And there are experts available for partnering. So please reach out to the partners. There is a little bit of frustration in the next few questions about the time it takes to register in this region. And I have a question which says we have a bit of an experience at registering some of our products in countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. Average time is around 36 months. What is your recommendation to shorten this period? Comparing this with EU, it seems even longer. So anybody who wants to speak about their experiences in registering an EU dossier in ASEAN countries?
That whatever Nong has mentioned is unfortunately true. So many times we in the business development fraternity look at upside cases and base cases, but honestly, it ends up being the base case or the worst case, whatever we may call. So I was actually piggybacking on your comment, Nong, and absolutely agree with what you said.
Yeah, but basically, if your product is in very high interest of the government, for example, COVID, right? They can approve in weeks' time. We see that. But as per normal process, if it's not an urgent, so government will not get involved. They will let FDA to do that. And that's what they will take time up to, you are absolutely correct that it's up to 36 months. It has been a small improvement in Thailand because they're now having 2 teams to review, but I don't see any improvement in Vietnam or Indonesia or Philippines. So yeah, we still need to bear with that until things get changed around the region, unfortunately.
Perhaps just to add that depending on very much on the molecules as well, right? You know, if you have a sort of breakthrough molecules, potentially you can exploring the MPP pathways as well. So MPP pathways become so important for many companies, especially the MNC, as a very, very important pre-launch strategy indeed, right? And most of the country across the APAC, MPP requirements actually are pretty simple. They don't even need any country approval. They do not even need a CPP. Yeah, that again, like I said, depending on your molecule. Yeah, thank you.
I've covered, though not all the questions on online, but I think I've covered the general thread about the diversity in the region and the complexity of registration. One last round, 2 questions online with their cameras on. The question is specific to Taiwan. China has a lot of manufacturing capability, but in today's scenario, generic companies are unable to import the product in Taiwan. This is due to regulatory agencies are not inspecting China facilities. This adds complexity when we are intending to register, import any product from China. Can panel members suggest a suitable solution to this?
Import the API into Taiwan and pack it in Taiwan. So Taiwan allowable China-made API, Mahesh. Hi, good to see you, my good friends. So at this moment, Herman, unfortunately, Taiwan still do not accept me in China's products, right? But somehow rather they accept the API from China. Yes. So but I believe that soon down the road, when that political, somehow rather the decision has been made, and sooner or later the Chinese made product will make inroads into Taiwan. But not for now, unfortunately.
Thank you, Andy. I would like to wrap up, but I will do it in a smart way. I want to do less work. So any final comments from the panelists on the tailwinds and headwinds you're facing while doing deals in Asia Pac? So maybe I start with Mayank, and then we take a quick 2-minute, and then so that you can give your final thoughts about this discussion.
This is indeed a smart way. I'll keep in mind when I'm moderating the next session, Hemant. So thanks for that. See, in terms of tailwinds, absolutely that there is opportunity in Asia, be it smaller small considered Southeast Asian markets or the larger ones, it's very clear that boots on the ground, local capabilities, not just commercial, regulatory as well, that Nong and the other panelists were actually alluding towards, are actually extremely important. So purely from that standpoint, there's a deal need. And actually, as I had mentioned in my keynote address as well, that there are markets that are at different stages of maturity. Then you overlay companies that also have different capabilities and different product portfolios. It inherently creates the need to have deal making, to be able to have an efficient healthcare ecosystem. So that is the tailwind. When it comes to headwinds, absolutely. I mean, the sheer amount of effort that is required to do registrations in Europe versus what you have to do in Southeast Asia, and then the sheer amount of effort that is needed for each and every dollar spent. So when it comes to out-licensing partners, that may still seem like a little bit of a distraction. There were times when MNCs, such like Menarini, we were able to highlight the presence that we have in China and Asia Pacific, Southeast Asia, and piggyback Southeast Asia as a territory on China. But now the sheer size in China means that the companies are dealing with Chinese players or any company that is strong in China itself, and Southeast Asia, it may end up not being part of deals, or then again, just focus on specific markets. Another headwind that I've mentioned again is actually the competition, because of the fact that there are more players, because of the fact that the existing players have really upped the game. So I would say that there is a lot of capability, just the way, you know, we see in the Korean market. There is so much capability in the Korean market, but the market is small. Something similar to that as an analogy that I would say for actually Southeast Asia. Do I get the opportunity, Hemant, to select who has to reply or comment after me?
Of course you do, please.
Since Petar has his video off, I'll hand it over to him.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think in terms of opportunity, definitely it's a great opportunity. All the markets, I think for innovation across the board, obviously North Asian markets, they are more high demand for innovation, right? But also Southeast Asia, I think, is coming. So I would definitely take into account Southeast Asia, although maybe the takeoff for innovative products or 545(b)(2) will be a little bit later on, right? But now is the time to go in there. I think for the generic products, I wouldn't bother with North Asian markets that much. I think the big opportunities in Asian markets like Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia, etc. This is I think there's a lot of unmet need. I mean, some of the products, even the originator products, are not approved, right? So when you're first generic, actually you are innovator. For example, we got earlier this week approval for lenalidomide in Philippines, and Celgene BMS, they never entered this market. So we'll be basically the innovator, right? Which is putting you in a very lucrative position, right? I think on the negative side, I think that for me the biggest challenge is the market access, right? This is a very challenging region from market access. It's much more complex. I was before in charge for European business of Alvogen. I thought Russia is the most difficult country. I mean, Russia is a walk in a park compared to some market access compared to markets in here, right? From regulatory, from commercial, I can tell you this. So this is it's a very difficult, and this requires very strong team on the ground with capabilities, also personal network, and of course, you have to be prepared to invest in this.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Do you want to choose who goes next?
Maybe Andy.
Thanks, Peter. I would not have much to add on. Very much depending on the business models that we are looking at, right? If we are looking at a typical B2B licensing, I think that should be a straightforward. I have these opportunities of in-licensing and out-licensing. Well, everybody are looking at good candidates. The good candidates doesn't come cheap, right? So speed is the key. So should that fall into your portfolio, nicely, strategically, make the move and move on and acquire it, or in-license it. And when it comes to MMA, I would say that is slightly even more tougher. And usually we say that potentially you're analyzing for the 100 deals, maybe might not getting a 1 or 2 deals because the pricing is not right. Yeah. Right. So on the other hand, that if you're talking about typically agencies models, contract sales and organizations model, I think that is pretty straightforward. With local knowledge, good local partners, that should be an instant deal per se.
Right. Thanks, Simon.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you. And of course, the lady in the panel has the final word. So all over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you that you won't ask me to sing. Huh? Just a closing, it's okay. So I think based on my experience working with partner who is not yet established in Asia, a few notes that I would always recommend is you need insight and you need a plan, because as you correctly asked me that the registration timeline is very long, right? So you really need to make your strategic decision. Where is your priority? So you cannot expect the same for all the country, and each country, the demand for each therapeutic class are different. So you need an insight work with your partner, decide where to start first, where you will prioritize, and then comes in. And also be ready to adjust, because these markets are very dynamic. One moment you talk about $10 per tablet. The next day, the price can be cut to $2. So you have to be ready to adjust, and your partner as well has to have enough insight to advise you what you could expect. So the potential is there. You just need a plan, you need an insight, and then prioritize when you come to Asia. Opportunity is here. Just come and talk to us, and then we give you a good plan.
Thank you, Nong. And I'll take away from where you left. Nothing can beat speaking to experts, feet on the ground, expertise on the ground. Let's keep that going. We are in a region that's growing fast. It's diverse. And whoever wants to participate in it, call up people, speak to people with local knowledge, and I'm sure things can be worked out with a good partnership. So very typical of a BD person closing it on that note, but I thoroughly enjoyed the panel here. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for your insights, and thank you to PharmaSynergy for setting this up for us. We really appreciate all the effort taken by PharmaSynergy to set this up for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.